Assalamu alaikum to some of you and peace to the rest of you. First, let me credit the three to whom credit belongs for me even addressing this. Eric Deadmon, Passport OG, and Mr. Z told me to cover this, and all of them paid for this request. Deadmon and Passport OG actually funded it financially, and for their generosity, I thank them. Mr. Z Black in Effect actually covered this already, and he did so with no attacks on Islam itself or on any prophets. For his work, I thank him too. I thank you three together from the bottom of my black heart and the depth of my black mind. Long live Africa and its diaspora, and black, heterosexual, non-select male patriarchy until extinction or judgment day just because hyenas don't like it, and the values of that portion of the black world that make up the black manosphere are positive values that are all programmed into the human conscience from the very beginning. Values that we instinctively know are positive because we're human are these values that are being promoted. Shahid Bolsen recorded another video in which he chastised red pill aware men and had some corrections for us. To this video, which I saw, Mr. Z already replied and reacted before I even could, because last week was hectic. I was out here trying my damnedest to mark all the essays from one assignment and then assigning another essay that I still have to grade for 25 students. When the weekend came, I was trying to record about it and make this trip to my girlfriend's work site as well, and then on the ride to her city, I heard Mr. Z setting Mr. Bolson straight. Now, to give proper credit to Mr. Bolson, let me go ahead and give you his background. He preaches as though women are normal in this day and age. And he might actually be right in his own life, because he's a Muslim muhajir living in, well, was a Muslim muhajir living and working in the UAE. And muhajir means somebody that migrated or moved somewhere in order to be a better Muslim. But when he was living and working there, a white non-Muslim disbeliever confided in him that he wanted to fornicate with an Emirati woman. Now, how do I know that this guy was white? Well, I actually don't know. But I can tell you how I know he wasn't anything else. And let me start by saying that he was a Westerner and he wanted to fornicate with the one nationality of women with whom it's off limits to fornicate in the UAE. Now, is that a Negro's obsession typically? No, black men do not go to places where they tell you hands off the women and we are obsessed with digging their women out. A lot of us aren't even into white women. We just don't let white men tell us to stay away from them. But most of us aren't really into them that much. White women do have to compete with sisters to get a brother, and when they get brothers, it's because they competed. They gave up some of the arrogance that sisters refuse to give up, and that's part of what this is about. Plus, the developments in the case would have been blown up, and it would have made headline news internationally had this guy been a Western non-white. The other thing is that this guy confided in Bolson, thinking that because Bolson's white genetically, that he'd be with the guy in his racial obsession with ending the purity of women that are off limits, or the virginity of women that aren't available to fornicate. So he wound up getting an invitation from Bolson to meet. And he still thought that Bolson, this Muslim, was going to hook him up with an Emirati woman to dig out. You know, the white converts got to hook up. Because he's white, he can get around all of the rules that apply to the darkies. Not understanding that, frankly, why to accept Islam are the most serious ones. So Bolson met him and then tried to explain Islam to him. And the man got irate and violent because he went to get some Emirati pussy that's off limits to him. So Bolson, being a man, held some chloroform up to the guy until the man was unconscious. Bolson wanted to put the guy to sleep, but the man died. Bolson did not know that chloroform is more deadly than what people think and that it doesn't knock you out instantaneously like they show in the movies. It's not how that works. So Bolson was caught for the death and he sat on death row in the UAE after his trial. In a retrial, he was found guilty of manslaughter only, and he was sentenced for the manslaughter, but the sentence was less than the time that he had already been in prison by the date of the retrial. So he was released from prison and he was deported from the UAE with no permission to ever return again for any reason. He can't go back to the UAE, and he might never be able to go to any Gulf nation again either. He lives in Malaysia with his wife and daughters currently, and his wife seems to be a very well-mannered lady who keeps her business private and speaks politely when spoken to. You hear him on his videos responding to someone, and that lady is not his secretary but his wife, from something that he said earlier. He limits his conversations with women to pretty much his wife and his daughter, unless a woman addresses him and he has to reply to it. He doesn't go into seclusion with women, and she doesn't go into seclusion with other men. In other words, they're not even alone with members of the opposite gender. Now, to both of their credits, they have shown a demeanor that a Muslim can tell is all about chastity. That's cool. I tip my hat to both of them for that. I've never met either one personally, and this is obvious still to me through screens and across distances, the length of time zones, because of how they conduct themselves. I ask a lot to reward them for that, and to make it easy for the kids to carry that on to their grandkids. Bolson is the kind of man that will defend other women that owe him nothing and will help him without asking anything in return according to his capacity. Voluntarily, that's his right, and he's allowed to be generous. But here's where we have to school men like him. Bolson lives in Malaysia with a wife that respects and appreciates him. She might never know what her dad or her husband do to take care of her. And I know she's an educated and working woman herself, but she does appreciate his efforts and respects his efforts because she knows she doesn't know what he undertakes to provide. She knows he undertakes a lot, and she knows that she doesn't know exactly how much that involves. So with full awareness that she's not aware of everything, with knowledge that she doesn't know everything, she thanks and respects and appreciates him for undergoing that which she knows she doesn't know. I know that because she's a lady that's discussing with him off screen on his videos, at least most of them. Her voice is somewhat subdued, which is a part of her modesty, and also having to do with, from what I can tell by the audio, that the microphone is aimed at him and picks up her questions as a sort of background voice, which serves to protect her modesty anyway because her voice is not as clear as his. If she came and ordered coffee from one of you right now, you would not know that it's her. And that's fine. Bolson's daughters aren't being poisoned against him because she's not that kind of lady. I don't have to meet her to know that. Now, I have ways of finding out some things about people. What I found out about her, I do know the ethnicity, but that's not anybody's business. I just happened to find out accidentally, really. There wasn't anything either of them did wrong. But I also can tell that she's not the type that would poison his daughters against him. The daughters may not have to provide and protect, but they do have to listen, and that's the bare minimum. So he isn't actually taken for granted to the extent that men in the West are. That's why it's not okay, Mr. Bolson, when you sit there and say to the men that you know they're doing their job when as a man they're being taken for granted. That's not the job of the men. Allah never said that the men are to be unappreciated for what we do. If we are to have the responsibility, then we have the authority, and we must wield that authority to carry out the responsibility, if for nothing else. Mr. Bolson, you are right to talk about fake alpha men in the West in general. That is fine. That's okay. You're a man of substance. My dad is a man of substance. He trained my brother and me to be men of substance, but let me tell you that fake alpha men are not the representatives of the red pill aware set of men, if you will. The red pill aware category. We know, if we have any sense, that the red pill is not a religion. It is an awareness of a pattern that women chose to make real in the West, and increasingly so outside the West because they follow them. That is the red pill awareness. It is not a religion. And until the day that men like you, who know something about women, and men who know more about women than you, and not just about their wives, but about women in general, tell young men what is really going on, you are going to have men who, if they know their religion or not, are going to go into the red pill awareness. And if they don't know enough about their religion, they will make that their religion. Because you can preach about pie in the sky if you can also preach about how to live in this world, how to actually live to get to that pie in the sky. You can't just preach about the pie in the sky without a path to it. And if inchastity is a path away from it, then you're going to have to preach some chastity, and the chastity has to actually be doable. It must be feasible. In the West, chastity is barely feasible. The only chastity that's feasible really is the unbalanced celibacy. And that's an imbalance. We already know this in our religion. We don't promote fornication, nor do we promote celibacy as priests and nuns and monks vow. We don't take vows like that in Islam. The issue is that unfortunately in the West, there is pretty much no way to be chaste except to be celibate, because even Muslim women are going against men that are chaste. In their mind, the only reason for a man to be chaste is because he wasn't attractive enough to entice and seduce any woman to be unchaste with him. This is how they're thinking. Neither you nor I live in the West anymore, and we aren't interested in returning to live. And there's several reasons for it, and that's one of those that's at the heart of it. We might visit. I sure do. We won't choose to live there with things being equal and things being in the same as they are. In any case, we've decided that we will live in these Muslim lands in which we've settled, with our wives that love and respect us. You with your wife, me with my wife. That's fair. We won't be out here fighting with these Western women that are shaping that to which the Western men react when they become aware of the games, which is what being red-pilled really is. The men we know in the West will become aware, because now everything's just coming out. All the cats are coming out of the bag. The discussions that women are having that we're not supposed to know are now being out, and we're finding out why we weren't supposed to know. My son lives there still. If anyone wants to help him save in less time to get to somewhere blacker and more Muslim, then any of you listening can send it to a bank employee in our family that will send it to him. And if you ask, I'll send you the Cash App tag, but it's not my account, so I can't see when someone does send him anything, and I won't be able to give them a shout out until either the bank employee to whom we're related or my son tells me who sent him what. Then I can give a shout out. Back to what we're discussing here. And by the way, my son did not ask me to tell y'all this, so he's not the beggar. I'm the one doing that on his behalf. But back to what we're discussing here, though, since I know men who are still in the West, I'm aware of the hold that Western women can have on men there, be it good or bad. And these men aren't out here being treated like they're worth anything at all. Feminism, Mr. Bolson, has become outright misandry. And it's making its way to you out there in Malaysia, sir. If you have sons, they will not find someone that easily to marry later on by the time they are 20. And that's not your fault or theirs or mine. That could change, and I'd like for that developing trend to change and make me wrong, but on this current trajectory, it's going to be like I just said. They won't be able to find someone to marry easily. These women in the West aren't even considering going back to traditionalism because of anything other than the struggles of the economy and their hatred for the things it takes to be independent. They don't even hide that at all. Claudia Jordan, who's ready for a man, even said that she needs a man with lots of money and bad health. She's still simply trying to get more money, which she already has, but without the man that can hold that money together anyway. She wants a man to come along, dive, and leave her with more money, instead of a man who can come along and give a structure with which to keep the money she's got and not waste it. These women talk about being rescued as if they're entitled to it, and they blame men for not leading with their wallets, as if they didn't tell us back when we were little boys that they didn't need our money because they're strong and independent. They tell us that they will now be financial burdens. They don't want us to lead with our wallet. We deserve to be used if we do, but they tell us that they're going to be financial burdens and will do nothing in exchange, even just sexually, because they don't sexually desire men who agree to marry them anyway. Once you're about marriage, they're not sexually interested anymore, even if they initially were from the beginning. Now, these women used to be in the West, and they were non-religious women. Then they became non-Muslim women. Even church women began to be that way. Now the misandrous ranks include even Muslim women with the hijab who go to the mosque, who say the prayers. Not at home, but at the mosque. Yes, even them. More and more of them are joining this misandry by the week, sir. I know because I have 3 female relatives of whom I'm aware that were Muslims and they left Islam altogether, before or after taking on leftist, feminist talking points. Yeah, just in my family alone, and that's on one side of it, not both. And this was the case 7 years ago. I don't know of others, but I'd bet if I knew more relatives, I'd learn more of them had taken the same path too. We aren't playing games about this red pill stuff, and for very good reason, sir. It's a real phenomena there in the West, and it's going to other places. 12 or 11 years ago, a Muslima that had left New Orleans for Atlanta after Hurricane Katrina mashed up the Gulf Coast once wrote to me that the men who Cardi B robbed deserved all they got because they tried to pay to fornicate now. Would they have been less deserving of robbery and drugging and fondling by men if they had tried to fornicate for free instead? She'd have said that they deserved robbery and drugging and being groped by other men no matter what. Not because of the lack of chastity, but because of how unattractive they must have been in her mind if they sought to pay for some intimate relief. This is a Muslima. She and I both do not agree with fornication, but she said they deserved to be robbed and groped by dudes while they were unconscious. Groped by men? She did not have that much of an issue with the inchastity. She had one with them being normal, unattractive men that might have to pay for that. That's all. I later found out she was close friends with a non-Muslim white woman who not only ridiculed Western men that went to Southeast Asia to find wives or girlfriends, but who herself was married to a Southeast Asian man. Just outright hypocrisy. So this non-Muslim friend of hers, instead of just, losing some weight and increasing her options in men from the West, decided she'd go to Southeast Asia and get a man in exchange for a green card, I guess. I don't know. But I assume so because that's what she said that the men were doing. So rules for me, but not for she. Mr. Bolson, we admit that if someone isn't Muslim, there's a guidance level they won't have in other areas of their lives. Many non-Muslims even say the same, and they expect us to naturally have more balance about certain things even when they aren't convinced that we have the truth in totality. They do think that our behavioral guidance should reflect something beyond our own human wisdom, and we agree with them on that point. Well, let's take a look at something, Sir Bolson. These Muslim women in the West are out here just following behind the non-Muslim women, taking on misandry every step of the way. In the African American Muslim communities, the middle-aged women were divided between preferring honest and non-stereotypical men and preferring no good stereotypes. But the younger ones definitely feel entitled to no good stereotypes and the excitement they provide without the consequences later on that choosing that kind of man has to entail. There are Muslim women in the West who don't want to marry virgin men. Now, how are these men supposed to be out here and experienced and chaste at the same time before they marry the first wives? The women do not care about their logic of what they want, and they will disrespect any man that falls short. We're talking about just the Muslim women here. There are women that don't act like this too, but I can tell you that in the West, even Muslim women won't be any kind of good looking and then act like men have any kind of value at all. You talked before about how men don't really even need to know what women want. They just need to know what their wives want. No, sir, these men will not get married. It's not going to happen unless they go somewhere where the culture is completely different, and those areas are fast disappearing because when the women of a place get ruined and take on the hive mind in which they all want the same few men, then they turn around and try to spread the boundaries of that sort of cultural zone. They follow the non-Muslim women who have no guidance other than the basic moral conscience that human beings have, enough to be held accountable on Judgment Day. Those unguided women have it in their heads that if they're any kind of cute or good looking, to even 10% of the men, they better be out here with bad attitudes impossible to deal with. They believe that only women with no options at all should be any kind of appreciative of men. They would beat your wife up if you were in the USA and they saw her treating you with respect, or they would try to brainwash her, and they have experience with that too. They might make an exception if they saw her and thought, oh, she's just plain and homely and she's lucky anybody wanted her. Then they might not do that, and even then they might try. They have a low chance of failing to ruin your marriage, and that is even if your wife is mature and modest. I'm not saying this as a slight to her in the least. It's just something with which they have experience. What they would not do is respect your marriage. Now, if your wife is beautiful, which is your business only, the women in the West will not just stand back and leave your marriage alone and unless she's cold and cruel to you to make you pay for her beauty. This is what men are up against in the West. And you're telling men that all that matters is being attractive to their wives. Well, they'll never get wives if they're not attractive to many women, because there are no women that aren't pressured to get after the men that all the other women want. And you have the nerve to sit up and say that these men take pride in picking up heavy physical weights, but the psychological weights are the ones about which they complain, and they want to be women. No, the men want to be appreciated and respected, which is what you yourself said, and they can't even get that. And the Muslim men are not exempted from this. You're sitting up and saying that these men should have to do and be and have all this stuff that you are reinforcing the notion that these men should have to be supermen in order to qualify for women that are nothing other than not only Lois Lane, but ditzy versions of Lois Lane on top of that. You are reinforcing this notion, and that is where you are wrong, because you are telling other men, Muslim or not, that they need to just go ahead and be simps. And simps sell themselves short, because they start off with the assumption that they are just so undeserving, that they're just so unentitled, even after they've done what the women say they have to do to earn anything. You'll sit up and say that you'd mop the floor with men who are consistently in conversations with women to whom they're not related and are not married. Okay. Are you going to send any women in your family to mop the floor with the women that are in the conversations with these men? Because these women are sitting up here telling these men that they are deserving of pretty much nothing except a hard time. Bad news. That they are deserving of nothing else except that. This is what you are telling them. And I'm saying to you, sir, that no, that's not okay. That's not fair. And while you might say, well, see, you sound like a weak man complaining about what's fair and what's unfair, sir, God is fair. Allah is fair. One of his names is Al-Adl, which means the just. If it's just okay for women to be unfair to men, then how would any of them get to paradise at all, period? See, a lot of these men are waking up, sir. And shout out to Compassionate and Callous. Thank you for sharing our stuff. Mr. Bolson, a man named Compassionate and Callous on YouTube, shared a video clip of a woman named Danica Marie saying that a long time ago, men would not tell their partners, their homeboys, what their women were doing to them, the girlfriends and their wives. They didn't share the stories of what they went through because they would be embarrassed, and they would be embarrassed because the women themselves would turn around and say to such men, well, why are women doing this to you? You need to figure out what it is about you that women would do stuff like this to you. I wish I could make that up, Mr. Bolson, but that was true. Many men were being ill-treated. According to the women's own standards of what good treatment was, these men were being ill-treated. And these ladies were sitting up and bragging about this to each other and encouraging it. And meanwhile, all these men out there playing basketball on the courts when they can get time to do so, and they're not sharing what it is that they've been going through. Because they've been told by the women and reinforced by the men that if you are the kind of guy that women mistreat again and again and again, it's your fault, because that means that there's just something so ugly about you that they just have to mistreat you. I wish I could make that up, but that was actually the notion that many of us had. I had that notion for years. I just wasn't afraid to tell some of my friends, the ones that I knew very well, I just wasn't afraid to say, man, I don't know what it is, but they're going to do this, that, and the other if I don't stop them from doing it. I would tell my partners that were close enough, and even they didn't understand. They weren't going to tell me that they were going through this, and they weren't sure how often somebody was going through this, how often anybody else is going through it. And then later on, I come to find out that a lot of them had been limited in certain options, and that was the reason why it is that their moms were never happy with the women they chose. Because their moms were not going to be happy with the women that would choose their sons, because their moms, well, they were part of the camp, Western women, that told women that you don't accept to be equally yoked to a man. You must be a burden to him. He propels you, but you slow him down. That's what the whole point is. You don't come together and put your wings together and put your fuel together so that now you're a bigger plane that can fly further or faster or higher or whatever the case is. No, you don't do that. You sit there and wait for him to come and provide all of the thrust, and you just provide the extra weight. That's their mindset. They will tell you, I don't do 50-50. There's a video of a woman years ago saying, I don't do 50-50. It ain't 80-20. It's 100-0. Now, when a woman says that, what she's really saying is, she's not talking about just finances. You and I agree Islamically that that's on the man. In many traditional societies that weren't even Muslim had that notion. Okay, fine. But that women still had a role. What she's saying is, I have no role to play except to just be there. If I become completely useless, I'm still worth more than you. That was what she meant. These used to be problems that largely plagued the African American community, specifically. And then it began to plague the white community. And that was when many non-black folks began to care. But when these things began to spread, and then the women of all of these ethnic communities in the West became the hardest on the men of their same ethnic communities, the Asian woman being the most virulent against her own men, the Latina woman being the most virulent against Latino men, demanding that they be gangsters, the African American woman becoming the most virulent against black men, demanding that we be Tupacs in suits with a whole lot of money, and the white woman being the most virulent and disrespectful to the white men, telling him openly that he deserved to be cucked, that he should have to provide and work and all of this, and then sit in the corner with the camera while some brothers show up and dig his wife out, and that he should be okay with that. When that sort of thing started to come out, and women started bragging about being able to tell men these things. Even if they couldn't, they would lie and say they could. That would wound up being the case, Mr. Bolson, is that men woke the uck up and said, we don't accept this sort of treatment. We don't even accept these ideas. And where the hell does this hatred come from? What you're talking about is outright hatred. If men said this about women, you would call them 9AY. What kind of heterosexual are you if all you're trying to do is drive men away and emasculate them? Are you heterosexual for trying to do this? Mr. Bolson, I don't hear you talking at all about that to which these men are reacting. And if you do address it, you'll sit up and say, yeah, but see, that's how women are. Well, then tell them to change. You never excuse how men are. We don't work because we like it. As you said, we don't even want the things for which we work. We work to give it to them, okay? But see, you, sir, are not being taken for granted, and yet you're telling the men this is how you know you're doing your job as a man, because you're being taken for granted. I don't think you mean to be hypocritical when you say it, but that's how it sounds. However, it is, if you would specify that, simply put, the women may not understand what you were dealing with, and that part is okay. If you would specify that, then you would realize that that part can jibe with what you said about how men just want those to whom we provide to appreciate and respect us. That's right. It's okay if my wife doesn't fully understand. I just want, well, it's not okay for her because she has worked for herself. She has provided for herself before she knew I existed. She's worked even since we've married, and she's about to stop, inshallah. But she was doing that to take care of responsibilities that are not mine. Responsibilities she voluntarily undertook. She didn't put those off on me, but you know what? She does appreciate and respect me. That part is true. And as a man who has what it appears to me that you have, what you have, you and I, as Muslims who have found wives with whom we are happy and who love and appreciate and respect us, can't sit up here and tell these men to start settling for women that can't love them, can't appreciate them, can't respect them, and can never be satisfied. And can't care less if the economy makes it impossible to provide these lifestyles that they want, that are only going to become more demanding and more demanding and more demanding over time. We cannot sit up here and tell non-Muslim or Muslim men to just accept that their job is to be underappreciated and taken for granted and told how much they're not doing. We can't do that, sir. We have a responsibility to be above and beyond that. If the women do not understand what men go through to provide for them, then they still should appreciate and respect the men for doing it, and they should understand that they don't understand. It is okay to tell these women, listen, we will do what we can to provide for you, but understand that it is not easy. We can get out there and bust our behinds and still not have much to show for it. That's not your fault, but you must understand that that's not ours either. If we can't come back with what you want, that is not our fault. It's our fault if we just quit and didn't try. And that's not our fault if we actually have proof or even just strong evidence that the efforts undertaken to get something would not pay off. If we got evidence of that and we didn't try, then not trying is not our fault. Shuck that fit. That's what we would have a right to say to these women. And in the West, those women don't respect these rights in men, which you don't understand, Mr. Bolson. You know what, Mr. Bolson? Just go to my Buy Me a Coffee page. Go ahead and get the $10 a month subscription. If you don't want it after the first month, cancel. You'll only lose 10 US. But go there and then look for the confessions. I think I got 114, if I'm not mistaken, right now, confessions that women have posted. And I post the receipts that show they posted them, even if the ladies take them down later on. No, you'll be able to see that actually this woman did say this shit. Pardon my French. And I'm going to talk about the Keystone Confession. And the reason I'm going to talk about that is because even though that Keystone Confession summed everything up, and I never posted it for free, you had to be subscribed to see it. The fact is that the Reverend Brother Pastor Deacon Dr. Hurricane Edward Allen Anderson of the New Greater Zion Valley, Precious Lamb, O Lord, hold my mule while I shout. Golden Monument of Hope Faith Tabernacle, Holy Bright Morning Star, Evangelistic Apostolic Tabernacle of We Don't Take No Crap Off of These Misandrists Incorporated, said once that even this whole push for men to be stepdads is insulting to men because the women are picking men they would have never chosen if they were not already single moms. Well, that is exactly something to which a woman confessed. If you want to know who she is and when she did it, you want to see the screenshot, then you still have to subscribe. That's confession number 10. Easy to remember, number 10. But a woman confessed to that. Minnie F. Baby confessed to that, so the knowledge is public now at this point. But I got 113 other confessions like that show, Mr. Bolson, and the Muslim women are not really being any different. The African American Muslim women are really falling hard for this feminism because they've come into the Muslim community with the feminism and its resultant misandry, and they're willing to teach this to women of other communities. So when you combine some of the Western white woman's feministic views with her newfound faith, and she's turning around and preaching from a position of cultural superiority. Well, you know, the West, here the women have rights, and you should know these rights. And then you got the sisters with the attitude and the neck rolling and the finger snapping because these stereotypes are true in the way that they deal with black men. And they don't stop when they become Muslim. And they're sitting up and telling these women, child, I wish my man would try this. And it ain't even got to be anything bad. It could just be, I wish my man would not let me tell him what to do. That's that man's job. You ain't even doing it right. You're supposed to wait until he comes home tired from work to start a fight with him so you can win the argument. You're supposed to wait until he takes his clothes off to put his pajamas on and gets comfortable and is about to start dozing off to send him on an errand. That's the type of stuff they teach. They say to them, look, you don't want that man all your life. You don't always want to be around that man anyway. Girl, you can get rid of that man and keep his money, at least half of it. And this is how you do it. And even though a lot of divorces don't necessarily result in women becoming financially set for life because of them, they do result in some loss for the men. And there are many women who are okay with even just that much, because that's enough to go and brag to their friends. Well, I didn't get much, there wasn't much, but he lost half. It's a big deal to him. Damn, girl. Yep. And I cheated while we were married. This is the hatred that we're dealing with. And I say we because I still got male relatives, sir, that live in the West. And I got Muslim brothers that are dealing with this in the West. And we got Muslim men who take seriously their religion, and they don't have the option to not deal with this unless they leave the West, unless they do not give Western women a chance, Muslim or not. That's the first thing, because even the women in the West that are not going to be like this are pressured to turn like this later on. You have no idea of the hatred that the women in the West have, and that they are teaching to women outside the West, even where you live. I preach about their hatred, not because I'm obsessed with women's hatred of men, but because I'm obsessed with men no longer being ignorant of it and underestimating it. I'm obsessed with men being aware of this hatred so that they know what the fuck to do when they're dealing with them as co-workers. Just co-workers or customers or employees checking out the things that they want to buy. I am obsessed with these men understanding that level of hatred, because I'm still surprised by it. You should listen to Mr. Z Black and Effects video, Mr. Bolson, because he played clips of the things that women in the West are saying, even Christian women. You're going to say, okay, well, but Jet Black, come on, Aki, where are the Muslim women that are saying this? Well, he didn't play the videos of the Muslim women saying this. But I can tell you that I've seen them tell me stuff on Facebook simply for saying that men who are trying to pay to fornicate should be lashed on their backs, but they're not supposed to be drugged, robbed, and felt up on by biological males pretending to be women because of that. That's not what they deserve. Advocate for them to get their lashes. And if they were trying and they didn't actually succeed, then the punishment is lessened. Just like it would be for women. If a woman tried to fornicate and didn't succeed, the punishment's lessened. It's discretionary up to the judge and the Sharia. For me saying things like that, I've had a Muslima go in, start talking about what men aren't worth, how useless men are. And all of that is really because she was not going to be okay with her husband marrying another wife. That's really all it was. Well, if she'd been willing to accept that, things would have been better. But she couldn't. Oh, that's not all. Something else to this too. And granted, I don't approve of certain things a husband did, but that's a topic for another recording. Mr. Bolson, you still need to hear the women in the video, because that's how you can hear what the Muslim women are telling each other and what they're telling the men. Mostly what they're telling each other. And here you are telling the men to just, accepted women are this way and accepted women are going to be difficult. How about the men be difficult? I'm not aware of you having any sons. But even in your concern for your daughters, I want you to stop and think about that. You want your daughters to have certain options. That's not wrong. But do you really want your son to be just underappreciated and underrespected while being overtaxed and overburdened and taken for granted? And if you think, well, that's just the role of a man, okay, so what's in it for him then? Because if there's nothing in it for him, in exchange for that, you're saying that God is unfair and unjust, even if that's not what you meant to say. I don't even want to say something like that accidentally and by extension. People might be, but I don't want to put that on God even by extension. So even if you're okay with that, you have to stop and think. Would his mom be okay with that if she really is fair and just herself? Would she be okay with her son pretty much being told that he was created to simply be burdened by women, yet they owe him nothing at all? But it's okay for them to burden him and then take him for granted when he's burdened, and then just blame him for what he doesn't manage to get in exchange for all he's trying to do to give them things. That he's supposed to bust his butt to get things to give to them, and then hear about how it's not enough when he gets it. Do you think God is okay with that sort of thing? Because if Allah was all right with something like that, then why is it that unappreciative women will wind up in hell? Obviously, he's not okay with that. And in all honesty, what you've done is you've unknowingly, or by extension, indirectly infantilized women. Oh, they can't help it. Yes, they can. You married the one that seems to be mature from certain things you've done. I'm married to one that's mature. There are times I got a reminder of stuff, but you know what? For the most part, she is very respectful and appreciative. And she's very loving. I'm very fortunate, and I want this for other men. Certainly, I want this for the Muslims. I want this for my son, and he seems to have it. I want this for my grandsons, if I have him. I want this for your son, even if you don't. I want this for your grandson, whether you want that for him or not. I'm all for men being men, but Mr. Bolson, every single time you start talking about men just needing to man up and ignore the red pill awareness, I'm going to turn around and oppose you on that. Because when men don't know, these ladies themselves will tell you, sir, if they're honest, that when these men don't know their worth, which you don't like to hear men say, they get taken advantage of. And the women who do it will brag about the advantage they take of these men to each other, and it will just continue on, and it will continue on, and it will continue on. It'll get worse on its own, but it won't get any better on its own. We're lucky that it got better now with the confessions that personal trainers started making, that some women on their social media platforms started making, with the information that men started sharing. Yeah, I had a woman do this to me, and then another woman, and another woman, and the men started finally coming out and saying things that I had said 30 years ago when I was a teen, and there was no internet in people's homes, that had people saying that I had a persecution complex. And I was saying, no, you can see this, just look at it. No, man, I don't know what you're talking about. And now they're seeing the same thing, saying the same things. If one woman cheats on you and other women know she cheated, they want to cheat too. They won't respect you even if you did the right thing and you immediately left that broad. They'll blame you for her cheating. This is true, and the Muslim women of the West are not different. There's a level of respect they don't have for men based on what other women did to these men, and it ain't got to be the man's fault. That's what we're dealing with. Now, in the Muslim world, it might be different. And that's changing there, we know. But I can tell you in the West where these men are becoming red pill aware, and Muslim men are going into the red pill because ain't nobody sitting up and breaking down to them these games except non-Muslim men. And a few Muslims like me trying to tell them. Since those of Muslim men who do know are largely silent, I got to sit up and say what little I know. If you really think that Rollo Tomasi is the major ideological threat to these men and to their iman, well, to be honest with you, that means that they were kind of weak to begin with, or unschooled in their faith. I will not go after their faith itself, and I will still tell them to know everything that they can know about women that women don't want men to know. I'll tell the Muslim men it's more important for you to know than it is for somebody else. Why is it that the men here have a saying, you don't beat a woman with fists, but you beat her with another woman? Why do they have that saying here in this part of the world? So I'm going to tell y'all straight. No, Mr. Bolson, I want to oppose you every time. You can tell men to do their job, but you're going to have to tell women to do theirs too. You're going to have to tell women in the West to do their job, and you're going to have to tell women to try to do their job before they get worn the F out by bad decisions and bad economies. And you're going to have to tell women over there in the Muslim world to do their job and not listen to these Western niches, feminist, misandrous hyenas. Tell them how to underappreciate and take advantage of men because that's what they talk about. If you want to know one of the most interesting conversation topics between women when men can't hear or they think men can't hear, it's pretty much going to be how to get money from men without working for it. That's what it is. They're treating us like a stock market. First, ATMs with ding-a-lings, and then later ATMs without ding-a-lings. And you're just excusing it. We'll oppose you every time. Every time. Start telling these ladies what they need to do. Start telling them how important it is that they appreciate and respect us. You already said that that's important to men. And that's really all real men ask for. Well, okay. Now start telling ladies how important it is for them to do that. As I can tell you now, Mr. Bolson, if you raised your daughters to expect these simp-ass attitudes from men, and they did that, and then they ran off good men, and wound up single moms later on having to do it by themselves, at some point they will begin to realize how bad this was. By that time, you and I may be dead and gone in our own graves. And they would sit up and they would say, I can't believe my dad taught me this about men himself. That does not work. And they will be saying about you, if you did this. If you don't, they won't say it. But if you taught them this, then they would one day in their old age, by themselves, can't get another man, say about you what it is that many men these days now have to say about their own mothers. I can't believe my mom set me up for failure like this by teaching me wrong. They'll say that about you. Why didn't he tell me the better way to keep a man like mom did? They'll say that. They'll hold it against you. And while their decisions are theirs, they still may raise that case to God on Judgment Day and say, well, listen, there's certain things that my dad knew about men and he did not tell us. Why even have to answer for that if you can avoid it? I hope this helps. Thank you all for listening. As always, black, heterosexual, non-select male power just because Boom Shika doesn't like it. Black patriarchy until extinction of Judgment Day. Thank you all in the audience and Mr. Bolson for flying with us here again on Jet Black Air, where the phrase jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender justice, Allah's justice forever.